And might I add this, capitalism is not the type of system in which you can have morality. Capitalism is a system that does not breed morality. Capitalism breeds cutthroatism, because in order to get ahead in this system of capitalism, to get to the top of the economic ladder, you have to be cutthroat. It is no other way. Everybody that's at the top have stepped on toes, have stepped on people, have done people dirty. They didn't get there by pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and working hard and keeping their head down. They did some dirt, whether directly or indirectly. Their actions were not moral that allowed them to get to the top. Their actions, more than likely, were immoral. I'm sorry about that. You know, I watch a lot of these I like watching a lot of these, I think they call them doco movies, like where movies based on actual stories, like actual events. So I like watching those, right? And one that really surprised me that I just watched on Netflix was the story about the BlackBerry, which was created by the company called Rhythm in Motion, a company out of Canada. And it was surprisingly very good. It was a surprisingly very good story. I didn't think, when I clicked on the film, I didn't think that I would like it. But it turned out that it was a good movie. It turned out to be a good movie, and I actually enjoyed it. But basically, the guy that became the CEO of the company, or co-CEO, he basically, hi, weekend special, por favor. Okay. Yeah, uno más. The guy that became the co-CEO of the film, he was working at another company, like a manufacturer company. He was in a high position, but he had ambitions to get ahead. He had a strong ambition to get ahead by any means necessary. So, to make a long story short, and even shorter, he told his boss, he said, hey, for this presentation, why don't you let me do the sales pitch and also the tax implications? The boss was like, nah, we got somebody else that's gonna do that. But he said, well, look, let me, how about you give me an hour and let me go over the documents so I can present that too, because this guy over there, he's a weenie. So right there, the guy that had spent 24 hours preparing the tax presentation, this guy that wanted to get ahead, that had a hunger to get ahead, he tells him, he says, hey, let me do it. He tells the boss, hey, let me do it, because this guy's, he's a weenie. You know, he's trash. So he's basically shitting on the other guy so that he can get ahead. So here, in the beginning of this movie, we already get the start, or the idea that this is how this system works. he had to step, he tried to step on his guy's toes. And what eventually happened is he went into the presentation, even though the boss didn't give him the permission to do it, he did it anyway. And ultimately, the boss let him go. But it was a blessing in disguise. It was a blessing in disguise because he was able to take advantage of this opportunity, because the guys that came in, so right before that meeting, the two guys that were the founders of Rhythm and Motion, that which would eventually create the Blackberries, they were just geeks. They were geeks, and they came in. They were looking for somebody to basically invest in their idea. This phone that would be like a computer, the first kind of what you would say the first smartphones. So he was looking for someone. They were looking for somebody to invest in that idea, and they had already done another deal with this other, I think it's called this other manufacturer. I can't think of the name right now, but basically the other manufacturer were basically screwing them. They had basically taken their idea and they were already working on something else. They were basically taking their idea and they were basically working to bring their idea to fruition and cut them out of the picture. Another cutthroat activity, right? But this guy so basically they weren't getting paid for all these modems that they had designed for this company. But the guy that just got fired, he eventually got fired. Those guys had left their little template or their little pamphlet for their presentation that they had done when they had come to meet this guy before he went into his meeting, and ultimately what led to him getting fired. And when he was cleaning out his office, he looked at that template. He was like, I got an idea. So he went, basically found those guys, and basically the rest is history, right? Y'all go ahead and check that movie out. But that movie, the Steve Jobs movie, all of these movies are showing you how in this system of capitalism, all these people that made it to the top, they didn't make it to the top by being moral. They didn't make it to the top by being nice. They didn't make it to the top by working hard and keeping their head down and pulling themselves up by the bootstraps. No, they made it to the top by stepping on other people's toes. And in this system of capitalism, in this system, this current system of capitalism that we have in the United States of America, you don't get ahead by working hard. You don't get ahead by playing safe. You don't get ahead by being moral, right? Because the whole system is immoral. The whole system is unfair. The whole system is unforgiving. It's unforgiving. You make one mistake and they're going to punish you for that one mistake that you made for the rest of your career. So that's a type of unforgiving system in which it does not breed for one to be moral or to be nice. It breeds for one to be cutthroat. And that's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it is in this current arrangement of what we call capitalism. Is there the opportunity in the system of capitalism to basically become successful and have opportunities that maybe other systems that don't provide? Yes. But at the same time, it often calls for you to do dirt to get ahead. All these rich families, look from the Kennedys. The Kennedys got their wealth because the grandfather was in the bootlegging business at a time when prohibition was in effect in the United States of America. So all these things show us, if we study history, is that, hey, the nice guys will always finish last in this system. It's not meant for the nice guys to win. If we can if there is a better system sometime in the future, that will be great. But right now, that's not the reality. We have to deal with what is the reality. The reality is this is a cutthroat, cold world, and if you are not cutthroat and cold in this system of capitalism, you will get stepped on. That is what it is. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. This is your brother Jay International tapping back in once again. I'm out.